Right now, welcome back to CW Iowa Live. Lou along with our good friend Michelle Brown. Hi, Michelle.
Hello,
Thank you for
hello.
being here. We are visiting with our good friend Michael Jenkins as we are talking the world of bankruptcy. And the thing is, people, when they see your segments, Michael, they say, yeah, you have some great information, but one of their first questions would be, when do I know if it's time to pick up the phone and give you a call?
Well, I think we'll have a few good ideas on that today. So the first thing you should maybe think about is if you are having your wages garnished time after time, year after year, and you're finding that you have trouble paying the rent, I pick up the phone and maybe call me next time you see me on one of the commercials here on Channel 23.
That phone number will flash across the screen. That'd be a good time just to grab the phone.
Numerous times. So there's no reason to put your family at risk by not paying your rent and getting evicted because you're just too stubborn to want to file bankruptcy. It's very difficult when these wage garnishments happen. People are taking 25% of these people's paychecks, and if they're living real close to the edge, losing a quarter of your pay could make the difference on paying the rent or not. So you definitely should just quit letting them do that.
And that's something that you can honestly help people eliminate that happening.
Sure, the day your bankruptcy is filed is the day the garnishments stop. So
that quick?
That quick.
Wow.
So that leads to the next thing. So if you've had a car repossessed, it usually turns out badly in most cases. After they've sold it at the dealer auction, it's not just going to be $1,500 or $2,000 that you owe on the loan. They usually come up woefully short. You could be looking at $6,000 to $10,000. And so it's not uncommon that I see people that have not just one of those, but more than one of those. And so just having a couple of those could put you in a situation where you are definitely needing to file bankruptcy.
Because I think a lot of people might be thinking that if you have your car repossessed and they take your car, then, they're going to sell my car and then the loan's going to be taken care of and I'm going to be free and clear. But that's not the case.
No, they sell them at the automobile dealers auction. So many people coming to these are car dealers that are wanting to sell these cars. Well, they need to make a profit, so they're buying them at the right price and the right price.
In other words, cheap.
Right, cheap. The right price is the wrong price for you because that's what they apply to the loan, and then whatever's left on the loan, you owe it. And if you were upside down on the loan to start with, then you're going to really owe it. So when you traded your last car off that had a loan, you've got some of that loan probably still on this car loan.
Wow.
So a car doesn't generally go up.
No, cars don't generally go up, not even the Corvettes. And so what happens to these car repossessions is, go back to the first thing I said, having your wages garnished. Well, all of these places tend to sue you and get judgments, and then you're looking at the wage garnishment. So don't wait until they've gotten to that point when you've already had car number 2 repossessed. It's time to pick up the phone. The next thing that I thought was kind of an important time is when you and your spouse are arguing about your finances and fighting about them to the extent that one of you or both of you is thinking about getting a divorce. You might want to think about filing bankruptcy instead. It's less costly, I can tell you that, as far as the lawyer fees. And if that's the root of the stress in your marriage and not other things, well, at least you can solve that much more easily. And so rather than lose a spouse, maybe you should lose the debts instead and file bankruptcy, and you'll have more important things to argue about.
A lot of times it's just taking that first step to try to fix things.
Because trust me on this, it alleviates a ton of stress when you've at least decided, yes, I think I will file the bankruptcy, and you've come and seen a bankruptcy lawyer. Once you've done that, enormous amounts of stress go by the wayside. I've had countless clients tell me, after I can finally sleep again. So, and that's not even by the time they file. That's just by the time they first come in, after they've heard what they can do and that it'll be smooth sailing. It provides for much restful evenings.
Because they have a game plan now, and your mind's not all over the place trying to figure out what you're going to do.
And you know exactly where everything's going to be, and that you'll be out of the hole.
How does that affect for those that are concerned with the after effects of that, like the time, after for the years? Like,
Well, it's not very difficult to get credit again after you file bankruptcy. It's
not.
very easy, to be quite candid with you. I mean, if you qualify in all other respects, you can get a home mortgage from Wells Fargo 3 years after you file the bankruptcy. So I don't
That's
think
for a
thought it was a
home.
That's for a
longer
home.
term.
Yeah,
you know,
I think a lot
just-
of people are under that misconception. Yeah.
you can go get an automobile loan the day your case is over at most of the
Seriously? That
dealerships in
really?
town.
Yeah.
Now, it won't be for the brand new 2018. It'll be something off the used car lot, but they'll have several financing companies that will be willing to provide lending at a much higher interest rate than what somebody with good credit would have. But it is still a loan, and it's a way you can start building your credit again. So it's not that devastating.
Good to know.
So the next time you might want to consider calling me is when you can't answer your phone any longer because the person on the other end has an 800 number. So if you're getting these collection calls one after another, day and night, weekends, and your phone just keeps buzzing and so you just turned it off, well, you've got too many debts and collections, and refer back to rule number 1, the wage garnishments. That's what's going to be facing you. So don't let it get that far. Consider filing bankruptcy.
Yeah, if you can't answer your phone and be afraid to answer your phone, or that's the way you're living, that's not a way to live.
And that's usually not just from one caller. That's usually from multiple
If you have
callers.
one, you have probably several.
The next time you might want to consider is if you hit every payday loan shop in Des Moines or whatever community you live in to help you pay your living expenses, it's probably because you're spending too much money paying out all of the bills that you've amounted in credit cards and loans and medical bills. And so if you've exhausted all those and hit the payday loan shops, in all likelihood you probably need to see a bankruptcy attorney and cut the cycle, because once you hit those shops, you're going downhill in a hurry. The next item that you might want to consider is if all your credit cards with Synchrony Bank, so that'd be the Lowe's accounts and the Walmart and the Sam's Club and the Yonkers and all the department store cards, if they've all been sold to debt purchasing companies, you get letters from places saying, oh, we've sold your account and now it's owned by such and such. Well, those are all charged off, meaning not forgiven, but those are like the worst status of your account on your credit. And so all of those are going to turn into lawsuits, and back to number 1, your wages will be garnished. So when they've gotten sold to debt buying companies, if you've got lots of those, you really need to think about filing bankruptcy.
Because at this point, those companies that you have the credit cards from, they said enough is enough, and they turned it over to somebody else that can concentrate on that.
They actually sold it.
They sold it, yeah.
Yeah, they got 10 cents
sold
on the dollar.
Okay,
And,
so it's out of their hand. They washed their hands of it.
Yeah, that's out of their hands,
Okay.
and now the people that are going after it are not particularly nice people to deal with, and so that's the time to look into filing bankruptcy before it's too late. The next item on my list is if you've tapped your family members for loans to bail you out of your own debt, and primarily I mean your grandparents or your folks, and then another year or two later you need to tap them on the shoulder again for help, it's time to file bankruptcy, because they're probably not going to help you again, and you haven't really changed anything that got you into the mess in the first place. So you know, rather than putting your relatives in jeopardy, it's probably time to just call it quits and file bankruptcy and start over. The next item on the list. So if you got into a jam with your finances, and sometimes it's just one spouse, and you've borrowed money against your home on a home equity loan and paid off $20,000 or $25,000 in credit card debts, and you've gotten it back to ground zero, well, a year or two later, if you've got $20,000 to $25,000 in credit card debts again, and you're still paying off that home equity loan, I guarantee you it's time to file bankruptcy, because it's just going to keep getting worse, and your money is going to only stretch so far, and you've already put yourself in jeopardy of losing your home. So don't let it cost you your home. Rather just, swallow your pride, save your home, and file bankruptcy.
Now, from your experience, when people do this, if they get into problems and they draw against their home equity and then they pay off their cards and they get back into debt again, do they have a tendency to gather more debt than they did the first time?
Well, at least equal, and
Equal?
if they have credit available, more, because they don't have any control over their spending, and they just keep spending rather than paying off their debt. And they've got to learn how to use their money differently and how to manage their finances differently, because you just can't buy everything just because you want to buy everything.
Because I could see someone say, hey, we were in a situation before and we rectified it. Well, we got into that problem again. Well, we can do that again, and not realizing the ramifications.
And that's what people think. They can do it again. And usually you have to have your spouse agree to get these home equity loans. And usually they say, no, I think I'm going to get a divorce instead because I don't want to lose my home. And so
let's go back to item number 3 that we talked about here today. Okay.
Medical bills, I know, also can get people into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, so with medical bills, if you've accumulated medical bills that are in excess of what you make in annual income a year, it's definitely time to file bankruptcy. They're not just going to magically forget about it or disappear. They're going to eventually sue you and get a judgment in many of the occasions. But I mean, if you're making $30,000 a year and you got $40,000 in hospital bills, they're never getting paid. And the only way they're going to get paid anything from you is by taking it from you in wage garnishments, because you barely have enough to meet your rent and regular living expenses and survive. You don't have extra money to pay these, and these weren't anything you actually planned on having to pay. So it definitely needs a bankruptcy situation there. Finally, if you've lost your job and had to live off of credit cards, and I shouldn't say had to, it's a choice. Nobody has to live off of credit cards. They choose to. And all of a sudden now you're working a year later and you got $30,000 of credit card debt you didn't have before. Well, unless your job's going to pay $100,000, you're probably looking to hire a bankruptcy attorney. Because even if you get a $50,000 a year job, you're not going to be able to go pay back this $30,000 that you racked up in the last year while you weren't working. You got your regular bills to pay. If you still were able to have your house and car and keep it going, you'll be paying those. But don't think you'll be able to afford to pay these credit cards, so you probably want to call a bankruptcy attorney before it's too late.
Okay, that was really important what you just said. If you did lose your job, you racked up some bills with credit cards, and even if you did get a good paying job, say 40 to 50 grand a year, you don't think there's a way to pay off that 30 grand credit card?
Well, not unless you have a spouse making another 30 or 40,000 or 50.
That's the reality of the situation. So you should not say, well, I have a job that's paying this much money. I still need to file this so I can start over and get my credit back on track.
Or at least you can come and talk to me and look at what options, because Chapter 13 might be an option as well, and pay them back in a court-structured payment program.
So there's so many different things you can do. But in case people want to get a hold of you, Michael, what is the easiest way to get in touch with you?
Well, you can call me at 255-1855. Find me on the internet at www.iowa-bankruptcylaw.com, or follow us on Facebook.
Yeah, there's that phone number you said would pop up on the screen on 23. How about that? Okay, 255-1855. Get a hold of Michael Jankins.
Give people a little peace of mind.
And who do you have in the Final Four?
I'm liking Loyola.
We'll see if it happens. We're going Nova over on this side here. What about you, Michelle?
I don't even know who's in. What are my choices?
We'll talk sports more with Michelle on sports when we come back. Totally serious news on CW Iowa Live next.